Welcome back, football fanatics, to the First and 10 Club. I'm your host, Mark D, and we are here to recap Week 8 in the NFL season. It's our Tuesday show, our recap show. It is also Election Day here in America, and my pledge to you is we are not going to talk politics. Not that this election isn't important, not saying that, but here is your escape when you've had enough of the political commercials, when you've had enough of everything crazy going on in the world. Escape for a little bit and just listen to football. So week 8 in the NFL was ugly. More injuries. The Steelers remain unbeaten. I went 2-2 on my show picks, which isn't great, but I did go 9-5 for the week overall. I struggled all across the board. This is just one of those weeks. No matter what your position is, whether you're just a fan that plays fantasy, whether you're an analyst, we all have these weeks where the games just do not go as scripted. And we'll talk about that when we break them down. But we have a great show planned, and I have some super exciting news. The announcement will come at the end of the show. I'm really psyched about that. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the games, and we're going to start with the Thursday night game, the Falcons versus the Panthers. So the worst news here is the Falcons actually win. However, they did lose Calvin Ridley to injury. Hopefully that won't be for a long period of time. Kind of waiting to hear actual and more established news on that. How he practices this week will be very, very important. But the Falcons here, they're the interesting story in this one. I just don't really know what direction they're going here. I believe this is a team that has held on way too long to mediocrity. And instead of trying to take a look at what they're going to do moving forward, I think they're going to be stuck in this quagmire of we're going to win some, we're going to lose some, we're going to finish middle of the pack again. Raheem Morris has breathed a little bit of life into the team, which is great to see. They're 2-1 under him, but the defense is still just tattered with injuries. I just don't think they have enough to contend, but they're going to be a headache to any team they play. The Panthers, I was surprised by this. The Panthers just did not look right in this game. They kind of looked flat. Usually, in a game like this, I would favor the home team, especially on Thursday Night Football. It's a short week. I think, if anything, what this goes to show, people who have said Mike Davis has carved out this role, and even when Christian McCaffrey comes back, I'm not buying that. I'm not on that train. I still believe that when Christian McCaffrey comes back, maybe for the first week or two, it's kind of a running back by committee, but this will be Christian McCaffrey's backfield as soon as he can prove that he is healthy enough to take it. And that is an if. It's a high ankle sprain he's coming off of. But if it has the ability to bounce back from that injury, Mike Davis will be irrelevant. He is nothing more than a handcuff. And I do believe that. So moving on to Baltimore versus Pittsburgh. Well, this was really pretty much the only one of my bold predictions that I got right, which was the over 50 for the game. I said that the defense this wouldn't be a defensive game, that there'd be a lot of points scored. I was kind of right. There was a lot of points scored, but the problem is part of it came from the defense. It actually was a defensive game because it's Pittsburgh's defense that really kind of won this game for them. Look, Pittsburgh was outgained. Baltimore outgained them in every facet of the offense, but they lost the game. And it was because of, Pittsburgh's defense making some key takeaways when it mattered most. Now, Baltimore dealing with some massive, massive offensive line injuries. The biggest one is to their stud, all-pro left tackle Ronnie Stanley. Some could argue right now maybe the best left tackle in the game, or at least one of the best left tackles in the game. Just signed a massive payday, and unfortunately in this game broke his ankle. He is done for the season, and you have to start to wonder, and it's not just because of the offensive line issues, has Lamar Jackson been figured out? Look, I think Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback as an athlete. I don't necessarily think he's a great pocket passer. And that's going to show up against these better teams. So only time will tell. But, Marquise Hollywood Brown has been non-existent in the passing game this year. There needs to be, and I'll honestly say this, as crazy as it sounds, there needs to be some more receiving weapons on this team. God knows they have enough running backs. They have a gluttony of running backs. So many running backs that they don't know what to do with them. Maybe they should turn their focus into actually getting some stud wide receiver help for Lamar Jackson. Maybe that makes a difference. I don't know. But Pittsburgh gets the win here. They're the lone unbeaten team, and they remain unbeaten, which has prompted the interesting development in Vegas. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but look, it'll take us into our next game that we're going to review. What happens first? The Pittsburgh Steelers lose, or the New York Jets win a game? So, spoiler, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the New York Jets. Now, this was my lock of the week. There was no way in how I would have bet 100%, 1 million times out of 1 million times, that the Chiefs won this game. And I have to say, in terms of the Las Vegas bet, I highly, highly, highly doubt the Jets win a game before Pittsburgh loses one. And that's not anything against the Steelers. That's for how bad the New York Jets are. So, this game, we all expected this game to be a running back day. We all expected the revenge narrative. There was betting lines that, and we thought it was a lock of a bet that Le'Veon Bell would get a touchdown. Andy Reid, the player's coach. Well, I think Andy Reid listened to all that. I honestly do. I think Andy Reid heard everyone talking about how, Kansas City was going to run the ball down the throat, so forth and so on. And Andy said, hey, Patrick Mahomes, go to work. And you know what's sad? The Jets just mailed it in. This team's a joke of an NFL team. They traded Avery Williamson, which I don't blame them for that. They're not going anywhere, so get something back for him, even if it's, some football equipment, bag of footballs, whatever. But Avery Williamson posts on social media a picture of him in his Jets uniform getting the hell out of New York. It's sad. Jets, you're down. You're getting throttled by Kansas City. And what are you doing at the end of the game? You're running draw plays with freaking the geriatric old age all-star Frank Gore. Like, what are you doing? You're not even trying to find out what you have on your team. Play the youth. See what you have there. Is Frank Gore really in your plans for next season? Kansas City? Kansas City, you hurt me this week. You really did. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did nothing. Le'Veon Bell did nothing. But what Kansas City proved to you is they don't care about fantasy. What Kansas City proved to you, as they've done in other games this year, is they are quite possibly the most well-rounded team in the NFL right now, and they're going to beat you whichever way you give them to beat you. Whether it's on special teams, whether it's defense, whether it's running the ball, or whether it's passing the ball. Kansas City is a force to be reckoned with. And the last game that I picked, and I got this one right, the Los Angeles Rams versus the Miami Dolphins. So, two storylines here. One, the Rams still have yet to prove that they are capable of beating an above-average team, in all honesty. Their only wins are from the pitiful NFC East, or the majority of their wins are from the NFC East. And Miami came, having to travel across country, Miami, came out and did what they had to do to win the game. Goff was forced into errors in this game. And honestly, I put the loss more on Goff and the Rams than I do the win on Miami. Miami's special teams, they did enough to help, secure the win here because the offense looked super, super dull. For Tua supposedly being this ignitement, electrifying college player coming in, he looked a little bit over his head. Now, maybe it's butterflies. It's his first NFL start, and let's face it, it was against a very good defense. But there was nothing here that wowed me from Tua. And it really makes me scratch my head, in all honesty, because I still don't understand or really get why Miami has moved on from Ryan Fitzpatrick. It would have been different if he would have been costing them games, but Fitzpatrick had them on a winning streak and was putting up some pretty significant offensive numbers. So it's interesting to see how this plays out because I do believe Miami's at that teetering point where they could possibly make a run. So what do you do now? You've made the move to Tua. What happens if things start to go bad? Does it not matter? Do you just stick to your game plan that this is going to be Tua's time to develop? And if it means the not winning this year, maybe not making a wild card this year, that you do it for the betterment of the future of the team? It's funny. It's funny that Miami can do that. And you know what? If that is what they do this year, uh, Miami fans, you can tell me maybe I'm wrong in my thinking on this, but I'll be honest, I have to tip my hat to them for that. For having a set plan. And I think it started even last year. Miami has a set plan and they know what they're going to do and they're going to stick to it. So, curious to see how that goes. But Miami gets the win against the Rams here. And like I said, is really in the thick of things. And, who are they in the thick of things with? Well, let's go to the division. Because of this game, Miami is in sole possession of second place in the AFC East. And that was New England versus the Buffalo Bills. So I think two things became very evident in this game. We're going to start out with Buffalo. Allen is looking a little off right now. For a quarterback that came out in the beginning of the year and was just lighting the world on fire, everyone said it was Patrick Mahomes #2. And I'm not writing Josh Allen off. I'm not. I still think he has a good, bright future as a quarterback. He has a hell of an arm. But what I'm concerned about here is when he doesn't have the ability to just drop these massive deep balls down the field, he struggles a little bit. So it's going to concern me when they have to face these tougher teams, two of them that they've already lost to. What I think they need to do to help that, well, they need a pass rush. They absolutely need a pass rush, and they need to just hand the ball to Moss. Devin Singletary just does not look like a starting running back in the NFL to me. I think he's a very good complement, but I don't see him having the effect on the team that Moss does. And the good news about this is we saw who got the 2 touchdowns this week, and that was Moss. So that's the running back that you need to own in the Bills' backfield. If he's out there on the waivers, you need to be going out there and picking him up. Now, on the flip side of it, what we saw from New England is they are a one-dimensional team and average at that. They're a running team. They have really nothing going in the passing game, and I understand that there's injuries and things like that, but it's just not there. It's not there. Cam Newton, I hate to say it, but Cam Newton's days as an elite quarterback are gone. He is a middle-of-the-road quarterback at best. And yes, he is a force as a dual-threat read option quarterback. But how much of a threat is he in terms of being able to really jumpstart that offense? Because he's not really doing it in the passing game. Dare I say it, it's almost Tim Tebow-ish. Now, the bright spot for New England, Harris has been great. Another potential waiver wire add this week. It does seem that he has taken over that backfield. We'll see how long that lasts because we all know New England likes to mess with that. But a couple of weeks here where he seems to be the lead dog and has been producing. So Buffalo gets the win. Buffalo has pushed New England significantly under 500 to an area where they just have not been in a very, very long time. The good news for New England is, well, at least they're not in last place thanks to the Jets. But Buffalo has controlled the division, and a great matchup coming up here against Seattle. I'm going to be interested to see that game. So we'll see where we go from there. But Buffalo Bills, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. And right now, first place in the AFC East. So moving on to another first place team. coming off of a loss, the Tennessee Titans versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, coming into this game, I expected a ton of points to be scored. And in all honesty, for the amount of points that Cincinnati put up, a little foreshadowing here, I would have expected more from stats in terms of the wide receivers and Joe Burrow, but it really was kind of a quiet day. Cincinnati ends up beating Tennessee in this game. Now, the field goal didn't cost Tennessee the game, but Gostowski missed another one yet. So the question is really, how much longer are they going to roll with Stephen Gostowski? I know he has been, and some will argue, a Hall of Fame kicker. He's not right. If you are going to make a run, if you are going to have aspirations of going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, you need to have a kicker you can depend on. And I don't know that Gostowski is that kicker for the Tennessee Titans right now. Tennessee is also sorely lacking a pass rush. And I don't know what's happened to Jonnu Smith. I think that was whether is the injury still hurting him here, but that was a little niche to their offense that really made the attack a little bit more dynamic. Obviously, the loss of Lewan is hurting the running game here. And just the offensive line in general. You don't lose a player of that caliber and not take a hit. But I think Tennessee will bounce back. But, here's back-to-back losses. They need to regroup. And, hats off to Cincinnati. Burrow's going to be exciting this year. I think Cincinnati is going to have a shot and be in any game that he plays, whether he gets the win or not. But I do, like I said, I think there's bright things in the future for Cincinnati. Moving on to another team in that division who, again, it's an up and down roller coaster. You have the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cleveland Browns. And to be fair, this game was basically played in a windstorm. Now, look, that's football, though. You have to be able to make it work. And Las Vegas Raiders made it work. The Browns could not get going. One thing I did see from the Browns is that defense is a different defense, and the Browns become a different team without Myles Garrett out there. He got injured, had to leave the game, and it's just not the same defense. It's not the same Browns team. It almost makes you wonder if really the life and blood of that team is that defensive lineman, who may arguably be the best in the league. Jacobs for the Raiders had another big game. The downside to it is, especially for fantasy, was he had 3 shots from the goal line and couldn't score. So it took a good game, which could have been an incredible game, and really just made it average. But Las Vegas, in an ugly one, squeaks out the win, and I believe, had our lowest scoring game of the season to date. The weather was just horrible in this one. So it'll be interesting. I think you'll get a more accurate representation of what the Browns are going to look like post the OBJ injury next week, hopefully not dealing with the elements. Moving on to Indianapolis versus Detroit. So here's another case of a team that just can't get out of their own way. Look, Detroit to me is a team with just no identity. And I think it's Matt. I think it all goes to Matt Patricia. I think he feels he's the smartest guy in the room, or he's trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Look, you have an electric running back in Swift. Start handing the guy the ball. Get him involved in your offense. I love Adrian Peterson. I love what he did for the Washington football team while he was there. I love his story. I love watching his comebacks from injury. But trying to lean on this guy as your horse, as a guy that's going to take you somewhere, it's just not there. It's not happening. And the best thing can happen at the trade deadline today is for Johnson to get sent out of town, clearing that running back by committee up a little bit. We know that Stafford can throw the rock around. He proved that again. But it just, I don't know. You have Detroit one week that looks good and daunting, and then the following week they look like they're Detroit. Detroit is the one franchise that has been able to ruin the careers of some of the greatest players to ever play this game. And it's because they just never really amount to anything. The team they're playing, Indianapolis, looking a little better these days. Rivers seems to be getting kind of a rhythm and seems to be playing a little bit better. Turnover free this week. The D locked it down. It was great to have Darius Leonard return. But the big note here was their star rookie, Jonathan Taylor. And look, I'm heavily invested in him. And honestly, at this point, I don't know if we are going to get that return on investment. He just has not looked ready for the NFL. And I'm not saying that makes him a bust for his career, but right now it kind of seems like he's running through mud. He's not looking for the holes. He doesn't have the vision right now. It just seems like he knows the gap he's going to and he slams up into it regardless if there's an opening there or not. He's not letting the plays develop. Now, he ended up really being out-touched in this game by both of his counterparts, Naheem Hines and Wilkins. Now, supposedly there's an ankle injury. I don't know how much of that is the fact that Wilkins was effective, very effective running the ball. So, here we end up with yet another very messy running back by committee. So we'll see what happens there. The stunner of the week, and there's not a whole lot I'm going to say about this, other than it was the stunner of the week. Minnesota versus Green Bay. You have the best team in your division versus the worst team in your division. And it's a division game. I say this all the time. You have to always expect in a division game that it's going to be a fight. But basically, this game just came down to two things. The Green Bay Packers struggle tremendously against the run. And Minnesota has one of the best running backs in football. Zimmer, the coach of the Vikings, didn't overthink it. He just handed the ball off to Dalvin Cook all day. And when he couldn't hand the ball off to Dalvin Cook, he threw the ball to Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook put up probably the best running back performance of the season so far and outlasted Green Bay. They beat the division leader. It's another damaging win. Damaging loss. That's how I'm going to put it. It's another damaging loss for Green Bay. I think Green Bay needs to do something here at the trade deadline. If they really are making a run this year, they need to do something, whether it's bringing in additional weapons for Aaron Rodgers. Their entire running back room now may be gone. I don't know who is going to run the football this week. I really don't. They may be bringing somebody off the street to run the football because A.J. Dillon just came down with COVID. So now we have to watch with bated breath how the running back room turns out here. God forbid they lose Williams too because of COVID. You have Aaron Jones dealing with a calf injury. I really don't know who is going to run the rock in Green Bay. So Minnesota with a surprise win over the Green Bay Packers. Talking more about rookies and surprise wins, at least at the end of the game, let's talk about the LA Chargers and the Denver Broncos. So Anthony Lynn has to be on the hot seat here because, yet again, the LA Chargers blow a lead in the second half of the game and lose. And this is despite Herbert putting up incredible numbers for a rookie. I just don't get why Lynn is so obtuse to the idea that the guy who has put all the points up in the beginning of the game, Herbert, might be the guy who will win you the game. Instead, what does he do? He goes into a prevent mode, a conservative mode, and it costs them win after win after win. Somebody talk to their coach. I don't know what else to tell you. Somebody's got to talk to their coach. Somebody in that coaching staff, an offense coordinator, defense coordinator, offensive assistant, hell, an intern. Somebody try and talk to him. Put your foot on the gas. Stop trying to protect Herbert. He makes a mistake. What's going to happen? Worst case going to happen, you're going to lose. Guess what? You're already losing. So let him throw the ball over the damn field. Hell, if you took the restraints off of Herbert right now, I would call it right now. If they took the restraints off of him and let him throw, he might be the best fantasy quarterback the rest of the way. And Keenan Allen may very well end the season as the number one wide receiver. Those two like each other. Oh, yeah, they've got a connection. So, Denver does enough to win. Middle of the road, nothing special. And the only thing that I come out from the Denver game is, look, they have a very, very bright future in terms of receiving staff. Jerry Jeudy, obviously you're going to get Courtland Sutton back. KJ Hamler with an amazing grab to win the game. I mean, he called the game. You got two tight ends that are capable of getting it done. Like, lots of weapons here, lots of great things. The question is, I just don't know if Drew Lock is the guy that's going to get it done. To be honest, I haven't seen anything that special from when Drew Lock came into the game to play, from when Brett Rippon was in there playing. So, development plays a big part, and obviously it's, you're only in year 2, but you have to wonder, with all these weapons there lined up, is Lock the guy? So, speaking of quarterbacks and if they're the guy or not, let's go to the Chicago Bears versus the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints pull this game off in overtime. This game went to overtime in Chicago, cold, weather wasn't the best. And despite numbers, Foles does more wrong, in my opinion, than right. This is yet another poor game by Foles. He's still missing targets. He's still making bad decisions. And I go back to the fact is why I still don't understand the reasoning as to why he got put in over Mitch Trubisky. Yep, they were struggling in that game. And yes, Foles led a comeback. But what I don't understand is Mitch Trubisky was 3-0 to start this season. I'm just going to be curious as the season plays out. Like, what happens with the quarterback situation? Does Chicago still have, or do they have a franchise quarterback yet? Is it still missing? Are they going to come out of this season basically with no quarterback? And then it's going to become even interesting for them because they're doing enough right now to win enough games that they're going to be so far down the first round. Your solution is not going to come via the draft, I don't believe. So now do you do the same thing again? Are you going out there trying to make a deal, trying to bring in a quarterback who has some tread left on the tires, but is more established? They have a great defense. It's just a shame, and if I'm Allen Robinson, I don't know that I want to stay in Chicago. Can you imagine this guy actually playing for a quarterback who can get him the ball? That'd be downright frightening. He's never had that. He's never had a quarterback who can actually throw him the ball. It'll never happen. It's within division, but God almighty, could you imagine him going to Green Bay? Pairing with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers? I mean, maybe as a free agent it happens. Be a big FU to the Chicago Bears from Green Bay. I say give it a shot, Chicago. And then, New Orleans. Look at the other side of the ball. You ever wonder how good New Orleans could be if they actually had wide receivers on this team? Let's keep this in mind. New Orleans has not had Mike Thomas basically for the entire season. Arguably the best wide receiver, top 5 at worst, in the NFL. Yikes. Good things ahead for New Orleans. And Kamara, that boy's just a beast. Absolutely just a beast. So, a win. A win is a win. And a win on the road for New Orleans, an area where Drew Brees usually struggles. Outdoors in Chicago, had a hell of a game. Got the ball around and did some great things. So, New Orleans, definitely one of the front runners in the NFC. Talking about another front runner here in the NFC, you had Seattle versus San Francisco. So I was all about San Francisco offensive attack this week. Why? Because you can throw the ball in Seattle, and man, of course I hype it up, and of course it just doesn't happen. San Francisco's JV team, which we talked about earlier in the year, has now become a junior high team, as yet more injuries have struck down the 49ers. See, two of their players that they've gotten back from injury, Jimmy G, their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tevin Coleman, who came back and looked electric for his first 3 plays until he injured his knee again. Garoppolo aggravated his high ankle sprain and now, in all honesty, is probably done for the rest of the season. And then the worst news for San Francisco and for the fantasy world, one George Kittle, with a broken bone in his ankle and is done. A minimum of 8 weeks. San Francisco, just stick a fork in these guys. I feel bad for them. I really do. I don't know what you do if you're San Francisco here. They have so many injuries on this team, and you never want to say that, just chalk a year up as a mulligan year, but I don't know what you do here to stay relevant or compete, even in their own division. It's going to be a tough ride for them the rest of the way. And the opposite side of this game, Seattle, that's who you're chasing. Seattle just imposing their will on offense. If Seattle somehow can figure out the defense, if they can make a deal at the deadline here and get some pass rush help, and, if Adams comes back, this team is just a force to be reckoned with. Wilson is doing everything in his power to make sure MVP voters do not overlook him this year. And then you have DK Metcalf, who is just a man-child that we talk about the NFL as a bunch of freak athletes. He is a freak amongst freaks. What he can do with the ball, it's crazy. I've said it before, the guy's matchup proof. Seattle gets the win there. Now on to another team that should just pack it in. This game, sadly, wasn't even what I expected it to be. And I don't know why. I've watched the game twice now. But Dallas versus Philadelphia, the Sunday night game, which, dear God, could we get any worse of a Sunday night game? And I know it shouldn't have been that way when they made the schedule, but the bright spot for Philadelphia is their young wide receivers. Jalen Reagor, for what everyone wants to complain about when they draft and whatnot, definitely seemed to show some flashes as to what they saw in him and looked the part. And the gem that they have found in Fulgham. I mean, this guy, I don't know if it's just he realized this might have been his only opportunity, and he is making the most of it, and I love that about him. I despise the Philadelphia Eagles. Despise. They're in my division. Of course I'm not going to like the Eagles, but I will say this much. I have not, there has only ever been one Eagles player that I just had undue respect for, and that was Brian Dawkins. Fulgham's getting close because I just love this guy's story. I absolutely love this guy's story. This dude was thrown around from practice squad, cut from teams, and he got a shot. He got a shot because Philadelphia can't keep wide receivers healthy, partially because they keep leaning on players at wide receiver that don't stay healthy. But he got his opportunity, and he said, hell no, are you taking this away from me? That boy is balling out, and I love it. I love it. I don't even have an issue with it. When I watch the Philly games, I just want to see this kid succeed. Hopefully not against Washington. But every other team in the league, go to town. I'm happy for him. But on the downside for Philadelphia, more offensive line injuries. I'm just going to go and say it. Like, look, Philadelphia, I know you're in it to win this division. Everybody in the East is, which is really sad, but shut Lane Johnson down. Maybe not for the entire season, but at least give the guy, put him on the IR at least for 3 games. This back and forth with him, before you ruin him, you have one of the best young tackles in the game. And I get that he's dealing with an injury right now, but bouncing him in and out because you're trying to make something work, I just can't see how this is good for him. Do what's best for the player. Let him get healthy. And then old man Peters. I get you have to take what you have, but again, 2 or 3 times, down on, one knee, both knees, having trouble getting up. Wentz looks rough, and I do believe a very large part of it is because he's just getting attacked behind this offensive line. This was a smash spot against this game, against Dallas, and honestly, I think even though they won the game, I think Philly really came up flat in this game. Really came up flat. So, and Dallas, I'm not even going to really waste my breath on Dallas. The offensive line, yeah, they got Zach Martin back, and yeah, they ran behind Zach Martin. I don't know if it's because of the state of the team, but Elliott just looks less than interested in being the lead running back for the Dallas Cowboys right now. I heard somebody on fantasy radio say that Zeke is full. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Maybe he has been fed too much. Danuccio. Ugh. He looked like a late round undrafted rookie out of a small school in James Madison. Ben DiNucci, oh, what a rough first game for you. I know they were trying to be creative with play calling and whatnot, but you just did not look like you could be a serviceable quarterback in the NFL. If you keep having games like that, I don't expect you to keep a job. The game is just a little too fast for you. You had happy feet on every single play, and maybe that's expected. Maybe you need to be one of these guys that is on a practice squad for a couple of years. And I'm sure that the Cowboys had no intention of you ever seeing the field. This is a nightmare for them. But when you get your opportunity, if you again go to Philly, if you look at a guy like Fulgham, he's taking his opportunity and running with it. You seem to be running from it. Philly gets the win, the division lead. I don't know if that's anything to be proud of this year in the NFC East, but. And then on the Monday night, another smash spot. You have potentially what people believe to be the best offense and potentially the best defense in the NFC. With more weapons coming in Tampa Bay versus the lowly New York Giants, and you barely squeak out a win against the Giants. I know you're missing some pieces and whatnot, but this goes back to one of those things. As much as you have Tom Brady that throws these 5 touchdowns the week before, 4 touchdowns, looks to be on fire. He's going to steal the MVP away, dropping dimes in there. Looked really off against the Giants. Looked completely disconnected from his wide receivers. So, a little thrown by this game. Again, any given Sunday, I understand that, but I was sweating on this one. I fully expected this to be a much, much bigger blowout. And then thank God for a failed 2-point conversion, a borderline failed 2-point conversion with a little maybe PI in there. Who knows? It was a bang play. I don't fault the no call there. But the Giants lose again. And I think the biggest question on the Giants side of things is, one, I was very encouraged by the running of Alfred Morris. And I do believe that for the Giants' sake, you got to remember they were going up against the number 1 run defense in the NFC. I don't know that I go back to Devontae Freeman, to be honest. I kind of like the combination of Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris, and I might try and kick the tires a little bit on that. Now, it sucks because they're coming to, face my Washington football team this week, which would be a great revenge narrative for Alfred Morris. I don't know there needs to be revenge there, but, former team. But I would continue rolling with that. Devontae Freeman just doesn't seem to have the juice anymore. It's a shame, and the biggest question really is Daniel Jones. Look, I've heard so much crap given to Dwayne Haskins and other quarterbacks from our class, or that class, not our class, that class. When are we going to get off the damn Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes bandwagon? Like, this kid is just turning the ball over game after game. And honestly, the Giants lost that game because of Daniel Jones. No one else. That was all on him. Turnovers. Costly turnovers at the most inopportune times. So, that's our games for the week. It's time to run out the clock. So, the first thing I want to talk about today with running out the clock is the Chicago-New Orleans game. And it has nothing to do about the game. We're going to talk about Javon Wims and CJ Gardner-Johnson and the fight that happened. Now, supposedly somebody got spit on, somebody stole a mouthpiece, all these supposes. I don't care about the supposes. Something needs to be said here for this CJ Gardner-Johnson because, okay, yeah, he's the guy who gets attempted to be beat up or assaulted by Javon Wims. This is also the same corner that in practice had his own teammate Michael Thomas take a swing at him. I see a pattern forming here. One, I don't know who CJ Gardner-Johnson is. I really haven't heard his name this season, other than the fact that that's the guy that keeps getting friggin' punches thrown at him. I think there needs to be something said for that. And then, Javon Wims. You get the Stupidity Award of the week. Because one, I'm sure he disrespected you, whatever, that's fine. And if you're going to go out and you're going to attack a guy for ripping your mouthpiece off, for spitting on you, whatever happens, allegedly happened, there's so many things you can do. You know you're going to get suspended already. You know you're going to get fined. Is there any way in your brain, did you think for a second your actions were not going to result in a fine, a penalty, and a suspension? And you're going to, I think it's even funnier, he's going to appeal it. But at what point did you think that, you know what, they'll be okay with this? So if you're going to do that, why? Why in anyone's right mind? How stupid you have to be to punch a helmet? Hello? Newsflash, helmets are hard. You're not wearing boxing gloves. And the crazier thing about it is not once, but twice you swing at a helmet. Come on. Like, you give stupid a bad name. I've always found it unbelievably hilarious when I see people swing a fist at a helmet. It's like punching a wall. Guess what? Wall's gonna win. You're not Mike Tyson, Javon Wims. Your punch does not carry enough weight to it to inflict any type of significant damage to a guy wearing a helmet. That's why we wear helmets in football. Moving on. Today is trade day. The trade deadline is 4 p.m. today, Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. And I think there's a ton of teams that are in limbo in terms of what to do here. Do we trade players away? Do we bring players in? One of them is the Washington football team. There's a couple of players that are allegedly on the block. Ryan Anderson, pass rushing defensive end. Ryan Kerrigan, who's our all-time sack leader, which I understand if they move him, it's a business. I get that. Dwayne Haskins, obviously. But then they're also rumoring that Washington might, there's rumors, that Washington might bring players in. So it's head scratching to me because what I don't get are these teams, and Washington's one of them. Like, you need to make a decision which way you're going. Are you sellers or are you buyers? And a lot of times I think these teams get stuck. They just can't fathom, they can't bring themselves to admit that they should be selling. There's teams out there that it should be a complete fire sale. Nobody should be protected. Teams like the Houston Texans, honestly, the Atlanta Falcons, Julio, Matt Ryan, like it's time. It's time to figure out what is there for the future and how we want to approach the future. So, um, yeah, I'm excited. This is probably the first time in years that I'm really excited to be able to watch the sports tracker today and watch the news break to see who gets moved where and when. Because I think you've already seen a couple of trades go and fairly significant ones, some pretty interesting players. So I'm curious to see what comes of the trade deadline today and who gets to go where. And then for my final kneel down today, uh, all I'm going to say is vote. Today is election day. There will be no politics on here, but I am going to encourage you to make sure that you go vote today. It is important. It is important for your voice to be heard no matter what side of the choice you are on. Make sure you go vote. Don't think your vote doesn't matter. Get out there and vote. So that's today's show. I hope you guys like today's show. As we do every Tuesday, we recap the previous week, and Thursdays we do our picks and prediction week. But I said I had some special news, a big announcement, and I'm actually super excited about this. Tomorrow, you'll be able to see me join my good friends. Or hear me join my good friends on their podcast, The Couch GMs, as we do a mid-season review of the NFL. It's going to be a 2-episode series. One's going to be looking at the AFC and one at the NFC, and we're going to sprinkle in there what our mid-season awards are, and we're going to kind of take a look at what the first round of fantasy drafts would look like at this point of the NFL season. But super excited to join those guys. Really feel honored to be able to do a little collaboration with them. So make sure you guys are keep an eye out for that and checking that out. And the easiest way to do that is make sure that you click the subscribe button down below. And follow so you don't miss any videos. And make sure that you like and share and get the word out there. Obviously, if you ever have any questions or comments, if you want to tell me I'm crazy and wrong, because let's face it, I'm not right all the time. If I was, I wouldn't be doing this. I would just be betting and just living it up. But if there's anything we can help you out with, decision, start, sit, any of that stuff, this is the place to come. Feel free to ask in the comment section or on Twitter, First and 10 Club. Club is spelled CLU1. Or you can just search First and 10 Club. We show up that way too. But that's our Tuesday review. Week 8 is in the books. We're on to week 9. And with that, let's go football.